Hello, I'm Jonathan Hostetler, and this is a formal presentation of my internship at SimplyBank. First, I'll go over a brief company history, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my experiences at SimplyBank, both with customers and employees, talk about what kind of daily responsibilities that I had, and then also what my experience and big takeaways were from this internship and being able to work here this summer. So first, starting with a brief company description, SimplyBank is a local community bank with 6 locations stretching from Harriman, Tennessee to Benton, Tennessee. Those are the furthest and most remote locations. All their bank locations are located in Tennessee, Spring City, Harriman, Rockwood, and Dayton, where the headquarters are. I was employed at the South Dayton branch, so I was working down right across from Walmart. Most people know where that is. Banking uncomplicated is SimplyBank's motto. Their goal is to keep banking relatively simple for the Ray County locals, and also to enable the people to have a local community bank where they can know the people, know the employees, and then also build a good, strong relationship. Some of the competitors with SimplyBank are Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union, Community National Bank, First Bank, Regions Bank, and Southeast Bank, which have all kind of come into the local area. There's also some new startup banks that are looking to also compete with SimplyBank's market share in Ray County. As of just recently, about a week ago, SimplyBank announced the opening of a new branch in Decatur, Tennessee, so a 7th branch to be added. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my daily duties and responsibilities. So first, they wanted all the interns to learn a little bit about the timeline, exactly what that entails. That entails generally doing daily transactions, whether it be through cashing someone's check, doing deposits for customers, withdrawals, things of that nature. Obviously, your goal in this was just to learn the basics of banking, kind of the everyday interaction with customers. My next kind of role and responsibility was through loan processing. So this entailed generally me going through paperwork, kind of organizing it into a specific manner that the bank requires, and then also I went through different types of paperwork to find certain types of loans, whether it be mortgages that are refinanced through secondary mortgages. So I had to go through quite a bit of paperwork to kind of understand what was going on there. Customer accounts and customer service is another big area that I got to experience some. My role in that was generally either answering phone calls, which is always an interesting experience as you get some Ray County locals, but then also creating some customer accounts. So because I was not a full-time employee, they did not want me to have full access to create accounts. However, I did create a couple accounts under the customer service representative's supervision. And so that kind of looks like a little bit different process as you learn a new system, which is Fiserv, a management information system used for banks. And so you have to learn how to create it there, and then also create things like debit cards and enter all the information correctly, and as well as have a paper backup hard copy of all the information. And then I also put marketing up here. This is mainly due to the fact that SimplyBank had just instituted a new program called the Haverfield, and it looks to increase deposits so the bank can grow and have more loans given out to more customers. And so what that kind of looked like was any sort of customers that would come in and ask for information regarding a product. We would be inclined to present them with all the available products and help them understand what each one was, the slight differences between them, and kind of point them in the direction that we thought would be best for the customer. This also looked like putting up displays, so I was somewhat in charge of putting up a display in the bank area for customers that come in, so hopefully they're attracted to it, they understand what kind of products we're offering, what kind of free checking accounts are being offered. And thankfully the display that I helped create was one of the ones that won amongst the bank branches, so that was an encouraging opportunity there. So my personal performance evaluation throughout the internship was mainly monitored by 3 individuals. Paul Johnson, one of the vice presidents at SimplyBank, he was actually the individual that was on the committee that hired me. However, he was in the main downtown branch, the headquarters, and I was working at the South Branch. So while I was there, Nanette No, who is a loan processor and officer, was the one who would evaluate my performance, make sure I was getting things done I needed to get done, as well as learning kind of bank applications and learning where I needed to grow and learning areas that they would wish for me to learn. And then lastly, Beth Brenneman, which is the head teller at South Dayton. She kind of kept over watch of my teller duties as I would look to balance each day, sort of making sure I was running transactions right, I wasn't being, not failing to check customers' IDs, making sure signatures were in the right places for any sort of bank documents, as well as she oversaw anything that I had to do with counting money in the vault, etc., all sort of that sort of thing. So some of the experience value that I gained, I learned some key takeaways. Some of them were flexibility and adaptability. This was generally due to the result that the branch manager was on maternity leave for the majority of the time that I was in the South Dayton branch. What this meant is that it was kind of in an interim transition period where there was sometimes an interim manager, sometimes not, and so the employees kind of weren't necessarily overly happy about the situation, but also it was a little confusing at times, and so I learned that one of the big things to be is adaptable and able to change and adapt through any situation, whether it's through employee management, employees, or in employee management. Another thing that I think I gained from this is the value of a customer-centered business. And oftentimes I feel like this is overlooked because we focus generally on business principles, making sure we're making a maximization of profit, and yet we fail to realize the importance of the actual customer, who is what brings the company business. And I think SimplyBank did a good job of instilling that sort of thought process into each of their employees as they encouraged employees to know other people's names, customers' names when they come in, greet them, make sure you're standing, smile, answer the phone happily, all things that can be a little bit of a challenge for me at times. And then just overall general bank operations. So this comes from banking terms and jargon, understanding what certificates mean, understanding what different paperwork means. And so understanding that, and then also understanding the loan side of how loans work throughout the bank, how everything is tracked through the information system, and then realizing what all needs to be done, what information needs to be collected to fill out things like a loan application. Kind of helpful general information, no matter what type of business you're going into, is to know how a bank sort of operates. And then last thing I kind of learned is management and training. So there's not really a training program, an intern training program at the bank, especially the South Dayton branch. So because most of the employees had never trained another employee, the learning curve was unnecessarily steep, is a good way of saying it. So I kind of just learned by watching. Thankfully, I caught on decently quick, so I was not too lost with that. And then also is the way that managers manage employees is very different based on the person. And so some have more of a theory X sort of style, and others have more of a theory Y. I'll get to that in a little bit here. But so those are some of the key experience values that I took away from this internship. So some of the knowledge that I was able to use that I learned through my business classes at this internship started at a very rudimentary, basic level, and then kind of grew from there. So obviously debits and credits, this is often what scares people in accounting. However, obviously I enjoy debits and credits in accounting. So thankfully, because a bank is a typical sort of business, other than everything is reversed, it can be a little confusing there. But knowing debits and credits, understanding how ATM withdrawals impact a customer's balance, how withdrawing money, depositing money impacts people's balances, and even things like earning interest is very helpful. Having a basic understanding of where the debit's coming from, where the credit's coming from. It's a good way so that rudimentary understanding of accounting, based on the principles of accounting, is a good way that I was able to apply that knowledge to the bank. Next is the marketing. So we talk about things like presenting products, are they in the right place, or this is where the customer can see it. And so some of those things I did think about as I was showing a possible customer a brochure, and then kind of walking them through it, about where I think that they would best fit within the business, whether it's having a checking account, a savings account, or even a certificate deposit, an investment, any sort of that thing. And then lastly would be the theories of management. So that's the theory X and the theory Y. Some of the managers there, I would say more low-level managers are much more theory X, in that it's much more based on where or how you, like a very rigid sort of management system, making sure you're doing everything right. People are not motivated by themselves. The only thing that motivates them is money. So make sure you clock in, clock out. It's not about the learning experience. It's about getting the job done all the time. Whereas I think some of the higher up managers value more like theory Y, so it's more of what you were learning rather than based on time that you spent there. People are self-motivated, want to learn. Obviously, I was going into this hoping that I would learn a lot about the bank, about the banking industry, and so those who managed me more in theory Y, I would say, where it was more beneficial to my experience at the bank. So as a personal evaluation of this experience that I had, it was definitely surprising and quite a bit different than my expectations of what I thought going into this. It was proposed as an internship that mainly focused on finance and accounting. I didn't, other than just the basic principles of understanding debits and credits, I didn't use any finance or accounting in this internship. So that was a little bit of, I would say, bothersome. I was kind of hoping to have more of this financial emphasis, understanding, more complex terms and ideas, how loans are created, how they choose who to give loans to. Instead, I didn't get a whole lot of experience in that area, whereas I would have liked to. However, I will say that probably the largest takeaway I had was the relational experience with customers. So this involved either answering customers on the phone or interacting with them in person. So obviously, I had a wide variety of stories that I could tell about interesting customer interactions, but all being said, it was a good relational experience for me, because no matter what industry or job that you end up working, the fact of the matter is that you have to work with people. And so understanding how people operate, how people all think differently, realizing that there's not one predominant way that people should be managed, or not one predominant way that customers should be treated. I think realizing the differences in people and the relational aspect, just of business in general, was a really large and key takeaway that I had from this experience. And here are my references of different sources that I used throughout my internship summary. So thank you very much, and have a good rest of the semester.